Hi everybody, so I wanted to give a quick overview of Hypermesh, which is a meshing software that is pretty powerful, and there's actually a student edition that anybody who has a student email can actually get a hold of. And what's nice about this is you can get a hold of it and practice and hopefully develop these skills that will get you a job later in life, or maybe an internship, or it'll just be nice to develop these skills. There are a few limitations that you can see on the actual Hypermesh or HyperWorks page, and if you want to download the student edition, you can see one of these many how-to videos on YouTube, and I'm sure they'll do a fine job. But if you need me to help, I can help for sure, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. It seems redundant. When you open up Hypermesh, it's this little icon down here. It's going to look a little daunting for new users because there's just so much going on. For one, there's this toolbar at the top that is basically a duplicate of the toolbar down here, except it is in standard like toolbar format. So it's just weird. I never use this. I only stay down here. Going down here to this line, this is where you can create a new Hypermesh file. So you can actually just do that, and it's a new file. Here's where you can open previous Hypermesh files, save. You can import meshes or geometries that you've previously created. So this little ribbon with the mesh symbols on it is the mesh import. And you can click this down arrow and click different types of formats for meshes. So ANSYS, Abacus, LSDYNA, all kinds of different things. And then when you click the geometry tab, which is this more flat looking symbol, you can click through here and do the same thing, and there's all kinds of stuff. Don't really worry about these other three. You don't have to worry about them. The export tab is here, and it's where you export your new creations that you make in Hypermesh. So that can be a mesh, it can be a geometry, probably gonna be a mesh because it's not super great at making geometries, but you can do it if you want to. And then over, I'm not sure what this person's face is. This is how you actually navigate different views according to the axis. So you can kind of flip it around like this. And this is how you zoom if you want to click a button. If you don't want to click a button, you can do the easy thing and control and mouse roll. That's how you zoom in and out. You can also control drag. And then whenever you're dragging, you can control and click in a different spot on the mesh, and it will actually change the center of rotation, which is really nice. And I like that a lot more than pre-post version where you have to click a button and then click the mesh and then re-rotate it. So continue working down from the top to the bottom. Oh, and I think you can also pan by holding control and middle mouse clicking. Nope, not middle mouse clicking, right clicking. Yep, control right click is how you pan. I'm a pro at this. So moving down here, you're really not going to really worry too much about utility or mask. You can just stay in model. And so to start us off, go into model. Don't worry about these other symbols. I know it's just a lot. Right click in this big window, go over create, click component, and you can just name whatever you want. So let's call it Laffy Taffy for some reason. Okay. There it is, component Laffy Taffy. These two symbols here determine if your geometry here is active or inactive, and if your mesh is active or inactive. And you can also rename it if you want, and you can left click on the color to change the color, and it's going to affect the color of the respective geometry and mesh. You can then also organize a bunch of different things in assemblies. So, Laffy Taffy 1, there you go. This one will be green, and what you can do is right click assembly hierarchy, create assembly, and we can name this candy, right? And then what you can do is you can click, shift, click, drag, candy, and then whenever you click this, it's going to automatically click everything that's inside of it on and off. So that's a useful tip to have. Probably way above this, but just keep that in mind. So you can also right click and make current, and I'll get into that in a sec. So no, we're not going to do that yet. We got to get down here. Don't worry about these. The only things you really need to worry about in this row are this button, this button, this button, and this button. Maybe these later, but not now. In the toolbar, the geometry tab is where you can actually create nodes, modify nodes, same thing with lines, and then your surfaces and your solids. The differences in surfaces and solids are that solids allow you to actually mesh through with a solid hexahedral or tetrahedral mesh. Surfaces are really only for 2D meshing. I just realized that is up there. I'll block that out. And over here on the right is the quick edit toolbar where you can edit like different aspects of surfaces and geometries and meshes and all kinds of stuff. Working down 1D, this is 1D elements. Don't really worry about this too much. I can get into it if you want me to. 2D is where a lot of the magic happens. So this is where you create 2D meshes. Here's where you can kind of modify the meshes and make meshes off of other meshes. And each of these things basically deserves its own tutorial, or at least a few to one tutorial. So I'm not going to get into it right now. Automesh is one of the main things you'll be using. And then keep going down. 3D is where you make 3D meshes, and analysis is where you don't look at because you don't need that right now. And you will probably never need that. Tools is where you can organize. So you can organize a few different things. So elements, all these different things from one component to another. So say I have a box in yellow and I want to move it to green. You can go to organize and click that box and hit green and then hit move or copy, and it's going to move it. There's also mask, delete, find, and your normal transformation functions, and then some element quality tools right here, which are really useful as well. Post, again, don't worry about it unless you're using like one of the solvers that HyperWorks has, but I'm guessing you're not. If you're, well, I don't know. You may. If you do, Godspeed. So, as an example, I'm going to make a solid and mesh it really quick. So, if we go into geometry and we go to solids, you have these different options of things that you can make. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this little cone-like shape. And you're going to see this, and it's going to give you some dimensions that you can add to it, like the top radius, the bottom radius, and the height. And then you also have these two random boxes with one highlighted in this teal color. Now, what is this? Can you just click somewhere, anywhere on the screen? No, you can't. So what do? Well, Hypermesh is not great at making geometries. It's all node-based, so you actually have to create nodes to make basically any geometry. So these are going to actually want you to select a node within the model. So what we have to do first is make nodes. It's kind of annoying. So you're going to go to geometry, go to nodes, and you're going to stay in this XYZ part. Don't really worry about this right now. And we're going to make our first node at 0, 0, 0. And did it show up? There it is. And then we're going to make another node, which is going to represent the vector direction. Let's go Y. We're going to want to pull the geometry in the Y direction, so this way. So we're going to leave X the same, leave Z the same, make Y anything. So you can make it 5, you can make it 10, doesn't really matter. It's just a vector direction. The magnitude is not going to be based off the vector, at least in this case. Then hit create, and there it is. So hit return. Go back to solids, stay in the cone, and this is going to automatically be selected. If you click it again, it's going to ask for the ID. We don't know the ID, so that's useless right now. But if it's highlighted, you can click this bottom node and always make sure the thing that you're wanting to click is highlighted in teal, or else you're going to be banging your head against the wall like I do every day. Normal vector is where you're going to click the node off of this node that creates this vector that you're going to create a geometry along. And then you can define the radius. So you can just make it like 20 on the top, let's do like 40 on the bottom, 50 millimeters tall. And we can just call this millimeters. This software is unitless, so the dimensions or whatever you want to make it, if that makes sense. It's probably a little abstract at this point, but don't really worry about it. And then you're going to hit create. And you're going to get this wireframe looking geometry. Well, that doesn't look too much like a cone, does it? Well, the reason is because you're in this wireframe mode, and in order to get out of it, you have to click the shaded geometry button, and there's your geometry. Now it's going to be highlighted green like this, kind of like this transparent green, because you're still going to be able to reject it if you don't like it. So say you want it to be 10 at the top instead of 20. You can hit reject, change this to 10, enter, hit create again, and it's going to change it. So it's kind of nice. You can always go back if you don't like it. So we like it. We're going to hit return, and we're going to go to 2D and automesh. So what automesh is it allows you to mesh along a specific geometry, and the mesh is going to adhere to the limits of that geometry. So if you click this top surface, I can get into all these different functions, but as a concept, if you click this top surface, the surface is selected, and you want element size 2 millimeters, and you want to make quads, and you hit mesh, it's going to create a mesh along the bounds of the surface of this geometry, right? And if there are edges on this geometry, like this edge right here, there is going to always be a node attached to that edge, or an element attached to that edge. And that's what we just call like relating meshes to geometries, right? So before I get too ahead of myself, I'm going to reject that and go back. Within this auto mesh pane, you're going to be able to select if you want to mesh a surface of a geometry, and it may be kind of confusing because we just made a solid, right? Well, on every solid in Hypermesh, there's also surfaces. I know it's kind of strange to think about, but don't worry about it. It's like a coating. Every solid has a surface. And then elements allow you to remesh elements that you've already meshed. These things are much more complicated. Don't really worry about it. Just stay in size and bias. Make sure this is interactive. And then you can click the surface you want to mesh, like I did. Make sure it's highlighted. And then here you can change the element size. So you can make it 3, you can make it 2, you can do whatever you want. You can also change the mesh type. So say we want quads, mesh it here. Oh, I changed my mind. I actually want triangles or tria elements. Okay. Now they're triangles. Okay, and you can also just reject that and go back. And there are these other things. These are just a different form of trias. These are mixed, which means you have quads and trias. Quads only is if you're just really trying to force it to only have quads and not any triangles. And then advanced is, I don't know. I've never seen that. It may be new. So this right here is going to drive you crazy. So let's say let me make sure which component I'm in. Okay, I'm in this component. Let's say this one is active, right? But your geometry is in this component. Well, if you say elements to current component and you mesh, and you hit mesh, and you return, and look, it's wireframe mode again. You have to click this block. Okay, hit return. Why is it green? I just meshed it off of this surface. Why should it be? It should be yellow, right? Well, this component is active, okay? So when you go to automesh, it says elements to current component. That's going to be the bolded component. So you can actually mesh from a surface into a completely different component, which is kind of cool. But it can be infuriating if you're trying to mesh into this component, and this component's active, and there's already a mesh in this component that you really like, and then you just threw some other things into this component, and now you just have this like glob of mess, and it's just awful. So just always keep an eye on this, and just make sure you're not putting elements in places you don't want to put them. Keep connectivity is something that you want to keep on for now. What it's going to do is when you click a different surface and you hit mesh, it's going to keep that connectivity from a mesh to the new mesh if they're on the same surface, right? So if I reject and I say break connectivity, for example, they're not going to be node to node because it just doesn't care. It's just going to do what it wants. So you may have to do that one day, but don't worry about it for now. So we're going to keep connectivity, and you're going to click here and hit mesh. And I didn't get into something. I have failed you. So I'm going to delete actually, I'm just gonna get off of it. I'm not gonna get too far down this rabbit hole because it's already 20 minutes, nope, 14 minutes. But another option is when you have this interactive mode selected, when you hit mesh, this screen's gonna pop up, okay? And it's gonna give you these different options. So within the density toolbar, or the density tab, you're actually able to change the element size as you go. So you can just say, I want to change it to 5. If this is highlighted in teal, you can click it. Now it's going to be element size 5, and it's going to change. You can also say back to 2, and you can hit recalculate all, and it's going to recalculate all the surfaces that you had selected, and boom, done. So this is mainly where you're going to be kind of tinkering, making sure you have the right mesh. So for example, if you said you want a element size of 2 like we just did, and you hit mesh, and you did not have interactive on, you get out of the mesh screen and you'd have this little triangle here, and you're like, I don't want that. Why is that there? The reason it's there is because there's an odd number of nodes along this edge. When you're using quads, it needs to be an even number if you want to keep quads. So you can click these edges and actually increase or decrease freehand, and then just hit mesh again, and it's going to update it. Moving down, you can go to mesh style, and you're going to be able to change between the different types. So if you click this and you say, I want mix now, well, it's perfect. Okay, so you want this. Now it's going to divide those into trias, but we actually want squares. And then mesh method is really important, especially if you're meshing circles like this. So if you make this free and you click it, it's just going to disregard what type of geometry this is and just mesh based on the size only. And it's just going to look really unorganized, and it can be useful, but a lot of times it's not. So if you have a circle, make sure you hit map as circle, and it's just going to look a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. What else? You can play around with these options. You know, they're kind of self-explanatory, where size is just, they're just going to help keep things the same size and whatnot. And then biasing in this tab is where you can bias the nodes along an edge. So as you click, it's going to rotate those number of nodes in a single direction. And you can change how this biasing works with, let's make it 0. Okay, you can change how it works. I guess I didn't even show what it did. Which is an example, mesh. See, it's going to kind of rotate these nodes around. And you can change how it biases here. So you can go between linear, which is what we have right now, or bell curve, which actually changes it so there's more nodes along the edge right here, and there's less out here. And you can also go to exponential, which is really going to, there it goes. Yeah, so it's going to really exponentiate the mesh, and then if you remesh that, see, that's beautiful. Put you on the team now. So that's biasing. Checks are a way to check as you go, and you can put these checks in. These are just different types of ways to make sure that your mesh looks good. Warpage is if a 2D element is bending 3D. If you kind of understand what I mean, like if you have it folding like in half, it's not real, so that's a warpage issue. Jacobians are like a shape factor, and if like you can plug in the different thresholds, so 0.7, and then you can click the measure itself, and it's going to highlight the elements that fail in red. And then what you're able to do is go back to density, and you can say, let's make them 1. And now we probably don't have any because these elements are teeny tiny. Yep. And it's going to tell you down here what the minimum is. So it's nice to go through and make checks. So that's that. And let me do one more thing. Let me make that even, so 32. So if you're meshing this 3D structure and now you want to mesh the sides after you have the top mesh, it's going to connect to the nodes that you already have meshed. But you're going to have all these transitional areas where it doesn't look really great, right? So if you want that to look linear and kind of clean, you need the same number of nodes on this bottom part as on the top part. But what that's going to do, it's going to really bend these out and make these a lot bigger. So here we go. Let's do element density. Let's make it 32 and set that here. Boom. So now you've got really small elements up here, much fatter elements down here. Something to combat this is you can play around with this edge length here. Or at least I thought you could. There you go. You can play around with this and kind of try and get like an equilibrium. You can also make this a little smaller and go into biasing. And if you want these elements to be taller than these are, because see how these are kind of skewed vertically and these are skewed horizontally, and you want to kind of even that gap, this is exponential, let's not do that, let's do linear. Okay. You can even that gap by biasing these nodes upward. So see now these are getting to be more square and these are doing the same thing. It's difficult, but it looks better. So that's useful. And then you can also bias along the bottom and you can make it look all swirly, right? Swirls. It's all pretty. So once you have something like this, you can then mesh the bottom and you're going to have very limited freedom because it's just going to strictly match these nodes and you're not going to have anywhere to really go. So this is where you may want to break connectivity and kind of adjust things however you want to a little bit more. But that's about it for this video. I've gone too long probably and haven't shown you too much, but I'll be making more videos about meshing and all the different complexities of it. But I hope this was helpful in some way. Give me some comments if you want to see something specific. I'd love to show you. I would love ideas, and I've got a pretty decent grasp on Hypermesh and LSDYNA, so if you want to see something specific, let me know, and I'll be sure to make a video on it. But thanks for watching, and see you next time.